Now that we've become familiar with accessibility as the characteristic of an environment that allows differently abled individuals to participate fully, and we've learned about some guidelines to nurture this type of environment, plus received an introduction to the broader concepts of UDI and UDL, where accessibility is a component of the culture, it's time to think about best practices. The techniques that are employed in developing accessible materials employ both WCAG 2.0 POUR principles, perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, and UDL principles, multiple means of engagement, representation, and expression or activity. It's the spirit of these principles, making things better for as many people as possible for as long a time as possible, that should guide us. When we develop our resources, we need to consider sensory, physical, cognitive, and neurological experiences. We can't just think about one disability, nor even one disability at a time. We need to think about disabilities and accessibilities from many perspectives. We need to consider how the content translates to assistive technologies such as screen readers, speech recognition software, and alternative input devices, for example, head pointers and puff switches. This is where WCAG success criteria are incredibly beneficial since we can't all be familiar with these various tools. We need to actually switch our focus from the disability to the barrier. We need to consider all learners, thinking about a social, not medical model. What is it about the existing environment or traditional methods that created the barrier and made an individual's diversity a disability? And we need to think about sustainability. What steps can we take to avoid rework and to keep up with the evolving technologies? It's time to learn about some concrete steps. When creating a culture of accessibility in education, there are multiple representations of information and multiple means of engagement. In thinking universally, we want to make these communications and interactions with as few barriers as possible for as many people as possible. This includes authoring content with accessibility in mind. The methods and techniques that go into the best practices for editing accessible information stem forth from the WCAG POUR, perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust principles. To begin with, the document properties, title, subject, and tags or keywords, of any file should be saved with that file to help users navigate and find content. Completing these attributes on a digital document goes toward the WCAG operable, understandable, and robust guidelines. Document properties are metadata, used to categorize files and make searching and working with documents easier for all capable programs, including assistive technologies, and users. Sometimes the properties can be edited through File Properties or Document Information shortcuts in the Windows or Mac operating systems, respectively. Other times, these attributes have to be edited from within the program that creates or saves a file. The document title is different from the file name. For instance, a document could have a file name of silfa15.docx, which leaves a person guessing what its content is, unless it is previewed or opened. But if the same document has a title property that describes its topic or purpose, something such as Bio 101 Syllabus, Fall 2015, then its content is obvious without previewing the file. The more descriptive title and the tags or keywords make it much easier for a computer, program, or user to find the right document when searching for it. It is also important that any document that is distributed should not be saved with editing, copying, nor printing restrictions, which could interfere with other programs, including assistive technologies. The next thing to become familiar with when thinking about the universally accessible document is its structure. Document structure refers to the programmatically determined scaffolding of a document. The structure makes certain the parts of the document are organized both in how the document appears, its layout, and how it is navigated, including its reading order. The document structure makes certain that what is laid out visually in the original editor is maintained when a document is opened by or translated to another program or technology. In addition, document structure allows assistive technologies to define similar elements and understand relationships between elements. For instance, with a properly structured document, someone who can't see text content but can have assistive technology read it aloud to them will know where a list of items ends and a separate new paragraph begins. The structure is determined by levels, heading 1, heading 2, etc., and other containers, lists, paragraphs, etc. By appropriately using the user-friendly tools built into common editing programs, we actually don't have to worry about programming anything, but we can still make a well-structured document. For structuring a Microsoft Word document, make certain to use styles, including properly nested headings for the document structure. The Styles option should only be used purposefully to connect a document section to a structured element. It should not be used as an easy way to apply a formatting combination. Paragraph and line spacing plus font type, size, and embellishments and other formatting can always be modified within a style. To control the layout and appearance beyond the defined styles, use font and paragraph formatting plus columns, breaks, and elements such as inline images, headers, and footers. Tables should only be used for presenting sorted data and never for layout. Make sure to use Word's built-in tools for all structured elements so they are properly identified by assistive technologies, bulleted or numbered lists, tables, headers, footers, inline images, etc. For structuring a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation, make certain to only have content that is included by properly using placeholders on a template's slide layout. The placeholders are the boxes with dotted borders which will hold the slide's content. All PowerPoint templates will include slide layouts with placeholders. For each new slide, choose the layout whose placeholders best match the objects you want on that slide. The title placeholder on a PowerPoint slide must be used on every slide so that each slide has text as its title that is different from the title on every other slide. Beyond the title placeholder, only use the text, table, chart, and picture placeholders for the most universally accessible presentation. The title and text are entered by clicking inside their placeholders and typing. Clicking on the icons for the Insert Table and Insert Chart placeholders will open the appropriate prompt that can be stepped through to enter the data and customize the object's design. Click on the Pictures placeholder icon to browse to a saved image file and insert it on a slide. All flowcharts, smart art, or other grouped objects should first be saved as pictures before using the image or pictures placeholder. And while it's best to create tables and charts via the table or chart placeholder so that the original data is saved with the presentation, these objects can also be saved as pictures and then imported using the image placeholder. For PDF documents made directly from the Microsoft applications using the Adobe add-in, much of the document structure transfers to the PDF automatically. However, for these or any PDF document, Adobe Acrobat makes use of tags and containers that take a bit more expertise to master. The Acrobat use of structured tags and containers may be more familiar to someone comfortable with web programming. Navigation aids help everyone, yet they often get overlooked when constructing a document. Headers, which we discussed when we talked about document structure, serve as one navigation aid as they break up a document into logical sections that can be passed over or delved into, depending on the user's intent. Page numbers are an element of navigation that we're used to seeing in our day-to-day life. As a rule, it's a good idea to include page numbers on all documents that are longer than a single page or slide. This helps in both navigating or perceiving and in understanding the document. In addition, the unique slide titles of a PowerPoint file help a user to find their way around, similar to headers. And for longer documents other than PowerPoint, make certain to insert an automatically generated table of contents, a reference tool, whose hyperlinked pages will be updated automatically when the document is edited or the layout is otherwise altered. A Word document's table of contents can be created automatically according to the heading levels that have been used in the file. Another characteristic of the universally accessible document is its reading order. The reading order is the sequence that a document's content is presented, for example, the order that a screen reader reads the file. The reading order determines the context of the document's elements and can affect its meaning. Automatic repetitive content, including headers and footers, are usually considered background information and not included in a document's reading order sequence. But any of this information that is considered substantial should appear elsewhere in the document. Decorative and background images and text, for example watermarks, should be considered decorative elements and artifacts and not included in the reading order. Tables are usually read left to right, top to bottom, and the reading order in Word documents can be further controlled by using inline elements. The reading order in PDF documents should be verified, though when using the Save as PDF option from Microsoft applications such as Word and PowerPoint, the sequence is usually preserved. In PowerPoint files, the selection pane in the more recent versions of Office shows the objects, text boxes, image alt text, etc., in their reading order on a slide. The slide title should always be read first and will set up the logical structure of the slide's information. The Johns Hopkins PowerPoint templates have an appropriate reading order, but any presentation made from these templates should have their slides reading order verified since it is easily changed when editing a slide's content.